Jim Carrey quote is, you can fail at what you don't love, so you might take a chance at doing what you love. If you're in a dead-end job and you hate it, what's the point in being there? Try doing something else, take a risk. I always have, I guess. Once I have an idea, I want to pursue it and get into it no matter what. If you told me at 18 years old at University of Portsmouth that I'd ever be able to make it to McKinsey and then to, running a blockchain incubator, I'd have said, what are you talking about? We invest in each founder, so we give them £10,000 each. We give them a developer, we give them a designer each. They have a toolkit that not many other incubators can give you.
Welcome to the Bay HQ, where we inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Today we have with us Jay Gujral, who's the Managing Director of BlockDojo. They're the UK's first blockchain incubator. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. So we've had a good chat before we started here, and I want to dive into your story. And you've done so many different things now, and especially on the investment side, but you started off very differently. And when you were growing up, did you ever think this would be what you're doing today?
No. To put it bluntly, mainly because blockchain didn't exist when I was growing up. So I actually had no idea what it was or what it could have been. Even at uni, I was still a bit like, this is bizarre. I've heard of Bitcoin. What could this be? No, my journey was, or what I wanted to be when I grew up was always changing. At one point, I wanted to be a famous footballer, probably. Then I wanted to be a singer at one point. So I've always gone through a number of different things and never really knew what I wanted. And it really took me until I got to, I founded my first company after university. I enjoyed that a lot. And
what made you found that first company rather than get like a job or go into the corporate world?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It basically started where I was on a placement year at university at Lenovo, the PC manufacturer. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that whole process. But what I found was a year out was just such a waste of my time. And in me, I was like, wasting time is like my biggest bugbear in life in general. And it was more of a case of, why am I taking a year out to get the experience where I'm going to get a degree, I'm going to do well in my degree, an economics degree. Why do I need to then take a year out to get the experience? Oh, it turns out because all employers care about is experience. So that's when I came up with the idea for GradSeacher, which was a student freelance platform, essentially helping students to find freelance work based around their degree. So that was the first thing that I thought could really help other students at the time, giving them an opportunity to do work that's based around their region, around their university, where they can do stuff related to sales, web design, marketing, whatever it is. That's where it came from. Yeah, for me, it was a case of, let's try and help other people not waste time getting this experience.
Was that originally a side hustle, or did you want to go full-time into business straight away? What was your
I always wanted to go first full-time into it. So as soon as I left Lenovo, in my last 3 months at Lenovo, I remember I went into a meeting room. I wrote down 20 different business ideas because I was so bored of being at this company. I love the company, don't get me wrong. I've met one of my manager there at the time, Sanjay. He's like still a mentor to me now. And that's 13, 14 years later or something like that, or 12 years later. But I just wanted to get into business. So I wrote down a list of business ideas, and that idea for GradSeacher came out of it. And I remember which meeting room I was in and what I was doing at the time. And it was number 13 on the list. And I was like, student freelance marketplace. I think at the time I called it the Student Village or something like that. I called up my best mate at the time, Ben, and I was just like, I've got an idea for a business. What do you think? Because he was also on a placement year at the time. And he was like, I love it. When should we do it? And that was literally it. That was a conversation. So when we got back to uni together, we just started building and then managed to get our first investment to actually build out the platform, because it was a chicken and egg scenario. Neither of us were developers. We built a pitch deck, and I started going around town to VCs who now I work with quite closely, but at the time I had no idea who they were. I'm trying to figure out how to pitch them an idea for a business that doesn't exist and won't exist until they give me money, basically. And then thankfully found an investor down south in Fareham called Chris Phillips, who backed the idea at the time.
So I studied economics as well. And I remember when I was at uni, nobody I went to uni with at least was thinking about that VC route. And we weren't really taught about it either. We were taught more the traditional finance. We were taught about, I don't even think we were talking about private equity. It was more the big finance, big corporate kind of side of things. So where did that inspiration come to go down that VC route? How were you aware of it?
At the time of GradSeacher, the VC, or going to get funding for down that VC route, came from just research, to be honest, seeing companies getting funded and saying that they've raised a lot of money from big companies. How do I get a chunk of that money? That was essentially it. It looked like the big thing to do. I think in everything that I've ever always done in life, once I have an idea, I want to pursue it and get into it no matter what. And that's kind of what happened. And then here I am today.
When you were a full-time entrepreneur after university, was it what you thought it was going to be? Or how was your expectations there compared to reality?
It was very difficult. It was paying yourself peanuts. I mean, we had unbelievable backers who gave us quite a lot. They gave us a house to live in because he had a good property portfolio. He a very reasonable rate. He gave us investment. Gave us, his whole back office of finance and HR and the rest of it. So it was very, very difficult, but it wasn't the typical route of a founder in any way. Like what we got given compared to what other founders get at the time it was unparalleled, to be honest.
Yeah, because we're going to BlockDojo in a moment because I know that you've done something similar there, right? You give a lot more than what people usually get. But you exited that company, right? What was that process like? Because you're still quite young to be able to exit a company as well.
That was hellish, to be honest. It was an experience in itself. It was good to do, but it had got to a point where we knew the business wasn't going to go where we wanted it to go. We were struggling to raise our next round of investment, and it was almost like how do we sell the assets of this business to people that want to buy it? And luckily, we found a buyer. The deal was not, something that was going to help me to retire, but it was something that got the company moving in the right direction, at least, or what we thought it was at the time. Then GDPR and whatever else came into play, and there were a few other issues for the acquirer. But look, we did what we had to do at the time, basically.
Did you already know what you were going to do once you sold the company? Did you have the plan? Or what happened to your identity then, right? Because for many founders, like your entire life is wrapped up in your company. And once you sell it, then what kind of mindset were you in?
I had almost a mini crisis after selling it, where I thought that was going to be you always do when you're a founder, you think that's going to be the thing that you do forever. You're going to be a billionaire off the back of it. You're 24 years old. You don't need to think about anything else. You just got to think about like what yacht you're going to buy in 5 years. That's, the stuff that starts going through your head. You're like, this is going to be unbelievably successful. As soon as it ended, it was right, what next? I ended up going around and freelancing at startups in London. I think I worked for, or was applying for jobs all over the place. I worked for 3 in the space of 6 months because I literally had no idea what I wanted to do. I then ended up getting into recruitment because my dad owns a recruitment company. I didn't work for him, but I thought I know recruitment. My startup was based around that. So I know I know my way around recruitment, basically. Went in, worked in recruitment for 6 months, did quite well on commissions and placings and whatever else, realized I hated it. And then from there thought, you know what, we've done the startup route. Let's go back to the corporate route and start all over again in that sense, because I hadn't done that before. And that's when I went into Dow Jones afterwards. And it was almost like let's get financially secure, recalibrate a little bit and figure out how I can do the entrepreneurial part inside a corporate. And that's where I went into Dow Jones.
I like that as well, because I think for a lot of people who want to start their own companies, they think of it as very binary of you make that decision, then that's it. You're a founder and you can never go back to the corporate world, when obviously it's not. And it's funny because often people I get on the podcast haven't done that journey from founder back to corporate and then to do their own thing again. But it's really important because a lot of people do that. And obviously a lot of companies do fail and they don't get to where people want them to do. So obviously you were lucky that you had the exit and things did go pretty well, but it's still that what's next, and you always have that option available. Was it tough for you though to go from working for yourself, making all the decisions, and even I guess as a recruiter, you still had quite a lot of flexibility, to then going working somewhere else where maybe if you didn't agree with the decisions above you, you had to kind of bite your teeth and listen?
Yeah, that bit was difficult. I suppose I had a really good manager at Dow Jones who really helped me. When I wanted to share my ideas, we had that vehicle to do so. And that's what helped me to grow and develop further there. There was a lot of opportunity there once I proved myself in, doing some deals and getting some sales over the line. It was a case of, okay, now I want you guys to listen to me. I think the big part and a big superpower that I have had and have is my ability to network. I think when I was in the company for 3 months, Yanni, who was my boss at the time, she said to me, like, you know more people in this building than I've known in 10 years of being here. Like, how? And that's just something that I've always done. But then from that, you start to understand how different departments work or don't work together. You figure out how different people in the building work or don't work together. And that was a big thing for me. Like, I mean, Rupert Murdoch's company, basically, at this time, was Dow Jones. I mean, the news building in 1 London Bridge Street, it's one of the nicest offices I'll ever be in. And I'm walking around some of the most senior executives at the company. And because I was just so confident and excited to be there, I was talking to everyone and learning from everyone. And then slowly figuring out and creating a web of things that I was interested in, and that led me to not only just doing the sales side of things there, but then co-creating sort of a product that was related to blockchain actually at the time, which was quite interesting.
Before we started recording, we were both talking about toxic networking and how some people can be transactional and use an agenda. What advice have you got people to do networking the right way, like the way that you did it?
Literally don't have an agenda. That's it. Like, you don't need an agenda for networking. You just you're meeting people because you're interested in them. It's not about what you can get out of them. If at a point in time there is a way to leverage that in your benefit, but it fine. But it's not again, leverage is probably the wrong word, but it's using you being a good person first and foremost. You know, these relationships, they could go on for 5-10 years. Like, you can't pretend to like someone or network with someone for the sake of it. You don't have enough time in life to do that sort of thing. So I think for me, it's just, you need to stay humble and stay interested in what other people are doing, and it will come back to you at some point. That's normally how I see it.
There's one piece of advice I always hate, which is you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And how people often see it is you make 5 really successful friends and hang around with them all the time so you can leech off them in some way. Whereas I said, like you said, you talk to everybody, and it could be that one person is good for your career, one person is just a laugh, one person you watch sports with, one person has got a similar family background to you. There's so much more to a person than their binary level of success. And if you're going to do that thing about the 5 people you spend most time around, make it good people, right? People who have got kind hearts, and then that will reflect on you. Whereas if you're just trying to do it because of success, which is what I think most people use in that term, success as money, why would they want to be friends with you if you just want to be friends with them because they're rich or because they're successful?
And that's the point, really. Like, I couldn't even tell you the 5 people that I hang around with the most. I have too many connections probably, and too many people that I'm constantly around. But that's a part of my role, is to be around people all the time. I hang out with my friends quite a lot, but there's such a big group of us from home that there's 14 of us in our boys group that you went to school together and we're still connected with, and we see each other on most weeks. And I think that's a big part of my growth and my upbringing is those group of friends, because we don't compete. We never talk about competing, or it's always been a subconscious thing where they are all unbelievably successful, where it's almost pushed me to go, right, you can't stick where you are. You can't keep doing what you're doing. How do you get to the next level? Like, they're doing some, I can't even explain, like, half of them. Like, one of them's got a venture capital firm. One of them's got his own construction company. Yeah, there's just so many. And it's a case of, right, this has really helped me, without actually realizing it, that having a great group of friends like that has really helped. But yeah, I don't think any of them would ever agree with you're the average of your 5 people closest to you. I don't think that at all.
So you mentioned by doing that, you then created this blockchain product, right? Was that your first experience with blockchain and creating something, or what made you choose the blockchain for that product?
Yeah, and it was a case of, I actually have no idea what I'm doing at the time. But basically at Dow Jones, we did this thing called IPO reports, where we created reports on companies that were going through IPO, so due diligence reports. At the time, 2016-17, ICOs, so initial coin offerings, were becoming pretty fraudulent, and they were big money. So people were putting money into these initial coin offerings, and they were losing lots of money. So I thought, well, why can't we just apply the same process? This is what we do, just due diligence, to the ICOs, essentially. And that was the product that was developed there at the time. And then shortly after that, actually got headhunted or sort of headhunted by McKinsey to go through their interview process, and that's when I moved on to the next step, basically.
And McKinsey wasn't just blockchain focused, right? It was more general in startups. But I guess did that initial experience with blockchain then make you think this is something I want to do, spend more time in, or is it still just that was fun and then something new?
Still nothing to do with blockchain. I was actually in oil and gas at McKinsey, and then slowly moved into startups, but that was a side part to my role. So I guess at McKinsey, the main part of my role was actually as a commercial consultant or client developer, where I was working as like the commercial arm on a number of projects. So what we'd do is, or a big part of McKinsey in the oil and gas space, was assets were left behind on consulting projects. So that was in the form of, say, a software solution or a data analysis tool, whatever it was. My role was to look at that and figure out how to like commercialize it, basically, and then take it to other companies or take it to market in other ways. So we could almost turn it into a software arm of the business. That was the whole part of the business that I was in. But it was also working on JVs with other larger corporates to create new products. And that's what I did. And that's why I found it really interesting, the variety of creating new products, working with different people. That's what I really enjoyed. And that's kind of led into the same thing that I'm doing now in a roundabout way. But then working and building the startup incubator there really cemented it that I really like the variety of what I do.
So why did you choose to make it about blockchain then for BlockDojo? Because so BlockDojo, as you mentioned before, is a incubator as well. It's similar to what you did at McKinsey, but focused purely on blockchain companies, right?
Yeah, so that wasn't even in my hands at the time. So the initial founder of the idea came up with the blockchain incubator, and me and a few others got involved at a certain point in time where it was like gone from ideation to, right, let's actually build this. And I'd done the same thing at McKinsey previously. In between that, I'd worked at BCG as well. And it was a case of, right, let's take what we all know and build out this program. We had some incredible advisors on board and incredible backers in Bitcoin SV, which is what we build on. And these guys got behind us and allowed us to have an offering that no one else has ever been able to have, basically. And that was, and I think the whole reason for doing blockchain was the fact that it is a massive differentiator. It is something that will change the world in a number of different ways. Why not be at the forefront of that? We've got an incredible team of developers who can build out products. Yeah, let's make the most of it now, basically.
So the name you just mentioned there as well, McKinsey, BCG, to go from those to someone who's just new and starting afresh, what was behind that decision too? Because there's a risk there, right? If you're at McKinsey and BCG, they're pretty much going to be around for a long time. You know that there's a lot of support, a big network there. And even though BlockDojo had great advisors and backers as well, what made you take that jump across?
I've always taken risks, I think, even at BCG. So it's actually BCG Digital Ventures, which is what I was part of. And then a company that was one of the like portfolio companies that I was parachuted into there called Exora. So it was still a risk to be part of something there. But then going into the dojo, I've always had a risk appetite. I like to push myself as much as I can. I like to learn new things. I don't like to sit still. I've only been at the companies I've been at for just over 2 and a bit years each, not because I thought that I'm better than them, but when I get to a point or a ceiling where I'm not necessarily learning as much as I think I can learn, I want to see what's next. And this now, and it was probably a case of this now feels like home. It feels like where I'm going to be for a long, long time, where I've got the dojo, also launching a fund alongside that, and SaaS company as well. So there's a number of different things I can do, but I think that that's the way that the world is moving. And I maybe just identified it earlier. I think the whole idea of someone being a career person is going to die out soon. I think you're going to have to wear multiple hats in a number of different things that you do. And I think you've probably been through something similar like that. And I think that that's what I thrive on is having that variety. And then alongside that, I'm doing a venture program as well, Newton venture program, and then a mini MBA thing as well. So there's always constantly learning and developing and doing stuff that I need content thrown at me 24/7. I think that that's just the way I am as an individual now. The world has moved that way where if I'm not constantly on a walk with podcasts, listening to podcasts, or, sitting down and reading something or just growing or developing, I think that I feel like I'm standing still. And that is the new age for me. It's just having content constantly blasted in your face. Yeah.
So you've got like a lot on your plate there, right? How do you actually, so it's one thing to always want this stimulation and like things to be going on, but you've been doing this for some time now. How do you stop it from burning you out? And how do you make sure you've got those systems in place to stop that from happening?
I think it's just practice, to be honest, more than anything. I think I know when I'm going to be close to burnout. And the good thing about the dojo is that we do 3 12-week programs a year. So after the 12 weeks, there's inherently a month where you get, it's not off, because a whole part of my role and my investment director Gareth's role is to get the companies funded once they leave us. But it's less intense than the 12 weeks where you're fully on helping these companies go from founder to fully fledged MVP and product. There's a whole process in the middle there. So I know when I'm going to burn out, and I think that's a big part of making sure I gym daily or play football or whatever else, and then go on a holiday if I need it. That's also a big part of it.
And with BlockDojo as well, how do you, as you said, like it's very innovative in how it does things. What do you think is some of the most impactful things you do for companies? Like what makes you guys stand out and help people more than maybe other companies do or other incubators do?
I think that we've got really, really good EQ as a team, as a company. We invest in each founder. So we give them £10,000 each. We give them a developer. We give them a designer each. So they have a toolkit that many other incubators can give you. And then throughout the program, we've designed the 12-week program to be almost like classroom-based exercises. It's literally like going back to school. Other incubators, other accelerators, whether they're as intense as ours, I don't know, but we make sure that ours is fully face-to-face. You can't do it remotely. You have to come trips all the way to Stratford to be part of what we're doing. And our program director, Alex, is, I keep calling him the professor, but he is literally like, the father figure to all the founders. They're all going through this new thing. They're going through this new journey. And that's a big part of it. It's then us helping them on that next leg of the journey, which I think we've done incredibly well. But each week has a different focus as well. We want everyone coming in to each cohort to almost leave as like a little family together. And that's, I think, a big part of what we do.
How many cohorts have there been so far now?
We're on our 4th at the minute.
And what do you think is better now than when you started? Like, what have you learned along that way?
Oh, we're constantly iterating. Like the program itself has changed. We've got better office space now. We've honed our investment agreements and the legal documents. We've made it more fun and engaging. We don't try and force fun where we don't need to force fun. We just give them an environment where they can really develop their business idea, basically, which is something that we've massively focused on. We don't want it to be, yes, it's going to be intense, but we also want them to have fun along the way, and that's a big thing I think we've changed up until now.
And with your own work ethic as well, right? Because as you said, you're doing so many different things at the same time. What do you think's changed as well for you? Because now, obviously, when you started with pretty much nothing. You had to build up that company, and now as you got further and further, you're an angel investor. You've got a lot more going for you. What's changed about your motivation, the way about you do things? Has that changed, or is it similar?
I think it's just being more efficient at knowing what I want to do or what I enjoy doing or what gives me energy. The stuff before that nothing previously didn't give me energy or wasn't anything that I wasn't interested in. It's just that now it feels more like a lifestyle with a job attached rather than it feeling like I'm going into a 9-to-5. I think that's what it is. So once you've got that, you have the energy to keep going and to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. And with the angel investment side as well, what made you get into that? And have you got any angel investments you could share with us and why you invested in them?
Yeah. The reason for getting into that was I felt it was the way to grow yourself as, like, when you go to McKinsey and you start getting bonuses and this, that, and the other, you have no idea what to do with them. I was like, well, I'm not going to add to my pension. That sounds boring as hell. Like I said, I'm risky in general. I'm going to try and find some founders and put some money into them. And that's essentially what happened. So Sonic Jobs was one that's been invested in. Mikhail, unbelievable founder. He's taken the business. Sonic Jobs is a really unbelievable jobs platform, basically, and he'd be great to have on here actually. But he's expanded into the US. He's raising more money into the business. There could be valuation of 30 million at the end of this year, or not even at the end of this year, in the next few months. That, when we initially got involved, was 2.5 million, for example. Travel Curious, so Amir from Travel Curious got involved with him in 2019, and that opportunity for me was massive. COVID hit, he had to pivot the business, but he's still going. That business could be valued at 50 to 60 million in the next few months. And because of the businesses like that and the companies that I've got involved in, and Amir, for example, from Travel Curious, he's now put a company through the Dojo, which is in there right now, which is a VR metaverse travel company. And that's what I love. Like, all of this network effect is coming to fruition now, basically.
So with your angel investments and BlockDojo, how do you find these founders and companies to invest in and to bring into Incubator? What are you looking for? And also sometimes, like, let's say somebody listening right now wants to get involved in, whether it's in blockchain or not, but they're looking for, how do I find people like you who can back them? What advice would you give them there too?
Trying to figure out how we get half the founders we get is mind-blowing to me. We've got so many different avenues in terms of like social media, LinkedIn, F6S. There's so many platforms that we use to find these founders. Big one for me is just going to events, meeting founders face-to-face and convincing them that what we can do is going to really benefit them. In terms of finding us, go to blockdojo.io, apply to us, and you can learn more. But for me in general, we just want founders who are passionate about wanting to, they don't even need to be changing the world. They just need to be passionate about wanting to do something different right now. And that's all I care about. We're not building companies that are super scary or different to traditional companies you see out there nowadays. All it is they're what I call is Web 2.5. They're built on a tech stack that is just slightly different to Web 2, and it uses the benefits of blockchain, and then gives the founders or gives the company a base to be able to scale into whatever Web 3 will be whenever Web 3 actually arrives. But essentially, all of our companies are companies that my mum would be able to understand, for example. They're not difficult. They're not scary. Just, you'll be able to understand what they do.
So you mentioned there about BlockDojo being in person, and then also a big way you meet founders who even get into in the first place is in person as well. And obviously in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about how the world's going remote and how everything's going to be online now. What for you is the benefit of being in person? Like, why does it help you so much? Because I agree with you. I much rather be in person and chat to you like this rather than through a screen.
I think you make better connections, you make a better network, you understand people better. Zoom, Teams is all convenient nowadays. If I don't understand the point in doing a Zoom or a Teams where you could just give me a phone call. I connect better to most people over a phone call than I do on a Zoom or a Teams, because I think you're just staring at yourself half the time. So I think it's a really odd way to connect, and I've never really enjoyed it. I think the face-to-face thing, you start to understand, you can really sell what you do to someone. You can really appreciate someone and the reason and the passions and why they're doing something. On a team or a Zoom, it can feel like there's a script a lot more, and I don't like that. I mean, reading people's body languages, seeing what they're like in person is so valuable. I'm not saying that every founder that we've ever had has come through face-to-face either. We've had founders come from Canada, Poland, Norway, India. Half of them I didn't meet face-to-face, but once you do have them there face to face, you get who they are as a person, and you start to appreciate them more, in my opinion.
So before we get into quick fire questions, what is most exciting that you've got coming up soon, or what's your dreams for where you're going to go in the future?
What's exciting about what's coming up soon is, well, on a personal level, is getting married. So that's always a good one.
Congratulations. Thank you. Good one. Your fiance's going to be happy you said that.
Yeah. She'll be quite happy with that. Also, we're launching international incubators now with the dojo. The Philippines has just been announced as the next one, and we've got a few more to announce after that. The fund that I'm launching with my co-GP Gareth, Fundry, that's coming up in the next few weeks, which is nuts, but it's super exciting. And there's a few other bits and bobs coming up, but in terms of this year and what we've got with the dojo, it's cohort 4 to finish and then 5 and 6 to start, so another 20 founders coming in this year at some point.
So really exciting to see what's coming up there for you in the future. We're going to have to move on to quick fire questions now. So first one, and it's always the hardest for everybody, is who are 3 British Asians that you'd love to shout out, you think people listening right now should be following or paying attention to?
This is always so difficult. The first one is going to actually have to be my fiance, Radhika. She runs her own manufacturing company. It's actually a door manufacturing company. To see how they've grown over the last few years is pretty insane. And I think that she'd be a great person to follow. So Radhika, she runs the wooden door company along with her family and her brother. My cousin Ashwin and his wife Chahat, they have a company called Zuma, which is a footwear brand. And I mean, they're doing some incredible things. They've just been featured with the Red Men the other day. I hate Liverpool, but they're on the Red Men's Instagram, which is awesome. And then I'm going to have to sneakily do 2 at the end, if that's all right. But one is Saloni Bojwani, who is from Pink Salt Ventures. So she's awesome. She's become a close friend. I've only known her for about 7 months or so, but she's already become a close friend. And Farouk Hussain from Sony VC as well, who's become like a weird VC brother to me over the last few months.
So I love how you kind of got in 5 people there as well. So your second one was 2 people too, but we'll let you get away.
I told you I know too many people.
Yeah. So next one is, if people listening right now are looking for help or guidance, what should they reach out to you about?
To be honest, I'm easy to talk to. If you ever want to talk about anything, just reach out and I'll normally make time for whoever it is. But look, with the crowd that are listening to this podcast, maybe there's some people out there that want to figure out how to get into consulting. Like, I've done some pretty hectic interview stages with McKinsey, with BCG. I'll happily walk you through how to tackle those. If you want to learn more about venture or getting into investing or even learning how to angel invest, happy to talk to anyone about that, basically.
So I'm going to ask you about angel investments afterwards. I'm going to start. I've got a call in a couple of hours. I'm going to do my first one, hopefully.
Nice.
So we'll see if that goes through. And then on the flip side, what's something that you need help with right now that somebody listening to the audience might be able to help you with or reach out to you about?
If anyone can help me to slow down a little bit or figure out how to just take more time and not be so all over the place or enjoying being all over the place, that would be great. If anyone's got any tips and tricks for that would be brilliant. And also, any gym tips or tricks or any diet tips and tricks, I think that we all need to focus on that nowadays. Yeah.
This whole thing, somebody said this recently, that the healthy person has 100 problems, the sick person only has 1. So it's true, you got to look after your health.
Love that. That's good.
And love chatting today. Have you got any final words to the audience?
I think one of my final things would just be enjoy doing what you're doing. I think one of my favorite quotes, and this may be cheesy as hell, but it's got me to where I am, it genuinely has, is actually a Jim Carrey quote, is you can fail at what you don't love, so you might take a chance at doing what you love. It's true. If you're in a dead end job and you hate it, what's the point in being there? Try doing something else, take a risk. And I always have, I guess. And that if you told me at 18 years old at University of Portsmouth that I'd ever be able to make it to McKinsey and then to, running a blockchain incubator, I'd have said, what are you talking about? But it's just been the risks that I've taken throughout that has allowed me to get there.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It means a huge amount to us. And we don't think you realise how important you are. Because if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you leave us a 5-star review, it makes a world of difference. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here, to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians, if you do those things, you can help us achieve that mission and you can help us make a bigger impact. And by doing that, it means we can get bigger guests, we can host more events, we can do more for the community. So you can play a huge part. So thank you so much for supporting us.